Good morning, folks, and welcome to the Gallant Views Morning News for Thursday, the 12th of September 2024. My name's Colin, and I'm delighted to be joined by Bill this morning. How you doing?
Yeah, pretty good, thanks, Colin. Thanks for having me on today and looking forward to talking all things Rangers.
Absolutely. Before we do, apology to the listeners yesterday. We did have a new show recorded yesterday morning, but we had a bit of technical difficulties and the recording went awry, so we couldn't get anything out. So I don't know, maybe we'll find this bill in like 10 years' time and we'll release it as like an unseen special. Who knows?
Yeah, from the archives.
Aye, I mean, that'd be good. The year's 2026, we need to put out a recorded show, so we put out the news from a random Wednesday in September 2024. That's the content we'll want. But into the Rangers news then. So probably the biggest thing that I've seen come out for the last 24 hours is the St Mirren chairman Jim Gillespie is no longer in the running for the CEO job at Rangers, and there's a new favourite came out who is Adrian Bevington. So I'll be honest, other than what's been put in the articles and a quick Google, I don't really know too much of him. He's had various roles in the English FA. He's also held positions at Middlesbrough, Nottingham Forest, and Aston Villa. Do you know much about the guy himself, Bill?
Zero, pretty much. I don't particularly follow English football, and this is basically the first time I've heard of him. In terms of the CEO role, I've probably been on record as saying that I think we need somebody that is an experienced football CEO who's done it at clubs, but I actually think we need somebody who's done it at successful clubs that are challenging for titles every year. You know, my preference, I talk about this in the transfer market as well, my preference would be that we look at successful clubs, even if it's in smaller leagues, whether that's like the Balkans, Eastern Europe, even, kind of Oceania or something like that. That doesn't really matter. I think success translates, and I think we should be looking to get a CEO that's been at the helm when clubs have won things and then been in the running to win things as well. Because, for the top down, I think everybody in their club needs to know what it means to be in a title fight and needs to know what it means that, because for us, like, second is nothing. We always talk about that. And I think we need somebody with that mentality and that mindset. My worry with somebody that's been a CEO or an executive at a club like Middlesbrough is that, no disrespect to Middlesbrough, but they don't win things. They're not a successful club. They just sort of play every season, and wherever they finish in the league is where they finish. I think if we could get somebody that was in charge of a club that won, say, the Albanian league, I actually think that's a better move. But, I don't know anything about this guy. If he's appointed, we have to get behind him, and I get that. As I say, I just think I've got my views on the type of profile that we should be looking for these roles.
I think it's a good point, because what do you want in a CEO? Yeah, you do want the off-field running of the club to be, to be sound and to be financially viable and give us a good platform. But it is harder to do that when you're competing for shiny things. So it does provide that unique challenge. And I think my only reservation we get in somebody for the Albanian league, just as an example, is how quickly can they adapt into the culture of, the culture of British football clubs and how they run, particularly the weird political landscape we have in Scotland, where I don't know what kind of it appears that we only self-serve one club at times. They'll argue they only self-serve us. I think this role is a more political role than we like to admit.
Yeah, possibly. But I think that is true in general across Europe. I can't really speak for, with the exception of the South American countries. I can't really speak for the rest of the world, but if you look across Europe, there tends to be just one or two big successful clubs. There tends to be a political dimension or sometimes a sectarian dimension to it all. If you think about Barcelona, Real Madrid, and you've got the Spanish sort of monarchist club versus the Catalan separatist club. If you think about like kind of Borussia Dortmund, if you think about some of the Slavic countries and what was called Yugoslavia, places like that, there is a huge political element to football. South America's even more extreme, Turkey, Egypt, all these countries. I get your point about adapting to the culture in the UK and bringing in somebody who is British or has worked in Britain for a long time and, good command of English and stuff like that could be helpful. But if you're bringing somebody from a middle of the road League One or Championships out down south that has that sort of experience of being at a British football club, to my mind, what they lack is the experience of you must prioritise winning trophies, and if you take the CEO of a random Albanian club, and I'm being quite flippant there, I know nothing about Albanian football, I don't even know, apart from Sheriff or whatever they're called, they're probably not even Albanian, but I don't actually know the clubs, right? Like I'm exposing my complete and utter lack of knowledge here. So, but if there is two clubs in Albania, which is usually the story, two or three big clubs competing for a title, you get the CEO from one of those clubs. He or she, season after season, has had to prioritise winning things, has had to prioritise winning trophies, as well as the successful and sustainable running of the club. And that's the type of thing I'm talking about, where they've got that, both sides of that mentality, accepting your point that it is slightly difficult to adapt to a way of life in another country. I don't think that's impossible, though. I think, a real big selling point has to be that you have overseen a club that was winning things.
No, fair. I think the early point you made, Bill, success translates, and it does. Like it'll be a different culture. It's the same thing we're trying to achieve. So no, I'll take that. I've seen a lot of unhappy fans about talking about the fact that we don't have a CEO yet, and I want to get your thoughts on this. Obviously, there wasn't a great deal of excitement around Jim Gillespie. I think it's fair to say. So I was quite surprised at the backlash that he's not going to be taking the job. I think, I get the arguments that people come out with are saying, can't believe how long it's taken for us to get another huge appointment done, blah, blah, blah. But I think this is too important to rush if it's not right. I think we need to take it. And I don't know, I think it's probably just fans are unhappy, so they're going to say they're unhappy about anything. Am I being happy clapper here, or should we be waiting until we get the absolute right person?
Colin, you wouldn't be accusing Rangers fans of being fickle, would you? That's just not on. So, yeah, I mean, see, at executive level in any organisation, you need to be able to shut out the noise and do what you as an executive think is right. You need to make those judgment calls. And the executives at the moment have made the decision not to go one direction. Then they're looking at other options and things. You need to get this type of appointment right. This person really is the executive responsible for the day-to-day running of the entire club. You rush this, you get this wrong, in a year's time, you're going to be out looking again, and it's probably a year of regression under the wrong person that you've had. So, whilst I'll have my opinions on the type of profile that should be considered for the role and all of that, what do I actually know? I'm a football fan. The only thing particularly that matters to me is on the pitch. And I don't have any experience of the running of the football clubs. I don't know anything about the background stuff that needs to go on. So I think the current executive team, much as they come in for a lot of flack, and we feel that they get a lot of things wrong and all of that, and rightly so, they get criticism. But I'm not in a position to say that I know better than them. So, they're the ones that have the decision to make. I need to be able to trust them to make it. as I say, I do have my reservations about the current team at the top, and there are criticisms to be made, especially about on-field performances and recruitment and those other things. But they're who we have at the moment, so we need to have a decision. Then we need to try and get behind that decision. And from their point of view, they need to be able to just shut down the noise coming from fans. And I actually think, if you look, much as I don't like talking about them, if you look across the city, their executives are very good at not listening to the fans, and their fans are much more vocal than our fans. Like you do see it there, literally in the car parks protesting sack the board, pretty much on a season by season basis whenever they have a couple of good results. And their executives don't pay any attention to it really, and they still seem to end up being successful. They bring in massive fees in the transfer market. I'm not saying that we use them as a model, but all I'm saying is that our executives need to be able to make a decision and not worry too much about the fan noise.
Yeah, and that's a skill in itself. You need to need to detach the emotion from it at times, as much as it will frustrate football fans. Is what you need to do, I think, because if you bend at the will every time the fans are unhappy, then you'll never really get anything long term done. Because, as you said, football fans are fickle. Rangers fans are fickle. We're unhappy quite often. It's just part and parcel of supporting the club. Sticking with another couple of off-field stories, and next one I'll come to, Bill, as kind of ties in with I don't know, like the kind of nonsense that a new CEO will have to deal with. And it's Jamie Murphy was on the Open Goal podcast, speaking to Andy Hartley, Cy Ferenko, and he was talking about his transfer from Brighton to Rangers. And it was quite a good interview. We had a couple of good wee stories, but this one in particular, basically, he said he went and got his medical done at, he called it Murray Park. It's the Rangers Training Centre, Jamie, if you're listening. He went and got his medical done and dusted, all fine and well. It was a transfer. It was maybe a full-on transfer going ahead. Then he got a phone call for one of the Brighton directors saying the deal's off. We've had a phone call from let's say another SPFL club saying Rangers can't afford it. So eventually that delayed it a little bit. Mark Allen had to go and sort it, squash the noise, and we all know he eventually signed. I don't think we need to look too far to see who the other SPFL club was, but again, this is the kind of stuff that we will need to deal with as a new Rangers CEO.
Yep, a bit of a fiasco hearing about that. Not I would say entirely surprising. When you consider we got to the Europa League final and the mayor of Seville and the chief of police of Seville were inundated with letters about Rangers supporters. It kind of shows you mentality. But do you know what? Like, fair play. It's a war out there to be first in Scotland. It really is. And when I was a boy, you would go to Ibrox and all the old guys would sing, "No one likes us, we don't care." And that's kind of what it is, people don't like Rangers. And maybe we need to be better at that Machiavellian side of things and being able to sort of influence quietly in the background what happens, not just in Rangers, but in other clubs. Like, the dark arts are going to go on. There's always going to be political manoeuvrings and all of that. And maybe it's something that, the new CEO needs to have on his radar and be thinking about. And I'm sure he certainly won't be blind to it.
Yeah, I think we need to get a big boy pants on, start acting like a big boy club, and get involved in the shit house. I mean, it'll come our way. So it's like taking the emotion out of it. It's a very good bam up. I mean, it's maybe the equivalent of like phoning a Chinese to your pal's house, and like when you were younger, we've all done that. It's I'm not going to get too excited or angry about it. I'm sure this happens all the time, not just with Rangers and Celtic. So Rangers just need to deal with it, and the new person comes in has to, Where to deal with it, basically. Staying on off-field matters then. Let's turn to St Johnstone, Bill, because this was quite a big bit of news over the last couple of days. Their chairman released a statement to St Johnstone supporters and some key highlights involving the old firm. First of all, they said under the new policies to be announced later this week, opposing fans will be limited to the Ormond and North stands in one section for the Jeff Brown stand, which is legally required to accommodate disabled seating. So this means that the Rangers and Celtic allocation will be cut to those sections instead of getting 2.5 full stands at McDermott Park. The chairman did then issue a bit of a war cry saying for this to be successful, we need the dedicated St Johnstone supporters to turn out in force, and it's a collected effort. So good to get your take on this, Bill. My view is it's their ground, it's their tickets, it's their fans, they can do what they want. I can moan about not getting a ticket for it, but even if it cuts their nose off to spite their face, it's their decision. We can't do anything about it.
Aye. I mean, to some extent, the only club that will really suffer because of this would be St Johnstone. And you know what? Like, I'm sad and tragic as it is, right? I'm quite a romantic fan of Scottish football. I love Scottish football, and you know, I've even though they've done ill to Rangers in the past, I've still got a soft spot for a lot of the teams like St Johnstone. You know, memories of stuff as a kid and all that, and it never really leaves you. So do you know what? I hope that their supporters, they take up the war cry and they start going to the games and they do start filling out. And actually, I hope they get to a point where Rangers and Celtic get just to one stand because there's so many St Johnstone supporters wanting to go to the game. But until that point, you know, I think Rangers and Celtic coming to town is a big part of every other club's income. Maybe, you know, not so much the Edinburgh clubs or something like that, but, you know, for the most part, the smaller clubs, Rangers and Celtic, is a big part of their income. A couple of times a season, you know, their finance teams will be relying on it. So their chairman, obviously there will be a bit of fan pressure for fans saying, oh, why, you know, we shouldn't be giving them so many seats and stuff. So the chairman here, or the CEO, I can't remember which he is, but he's kind of played a bit of a gamble and saying, right, well, what we're going to do is restrict the numbers that we have, but I need you guys to be turning out. So hopefully the St Johnstone supporters take that up and start going to the games a bit more. Because, you know, like, you watch it and, you know, when it's Rangers against St Johnstone, Rangers take up most of the ground and the St Johnstone supporters don't actually manage to fill the rest a lot of the time. And I've watched other games when sometimes they're on the telly or something like that, and if it's like St Johnstone against Motherwell, you would be lucky if you just got everybody in the ground into one stand, you'd be lucky to fill that stand. So, you know, righteous though their anger is in terms of Rangers and Celtic getting so many seats, they're not going to games. That's the problem. You know, if they were going to games, then there wouldn't be the need for Rangers and Celtic to take so many seats.
That's it, and I find it funny. Like, so again, St Johnstone's decision. Like, if I can understand chat about your fans before the old firm fans, but I do find it funny the irony of supporters of these type of clubs getting really upset that Rangers and Celtic get more than the fair due of seats, and it is only because they can't fill it. Like, it's not well, like it's not as if Rangers and Celtic rolled up and saying, right, see that stadium you're filling out every week, we want half of that. Like, chuck out some supporters. It's definitely not that. It's not prioritising home fans over away fans. It's just we pick up the empty seats. So it's not quite big bad old firm as much as they like to make it out to be. But I don't know. I think that's been a few clubs that have done this now. I think the likes of Aberdeen, Hearts, Hibs, they'll be able to stick to it. I just wonder how long the likes of St Johnstone and like Kilmarnock have done it. How long can they actually feasibly keep this up? That's my question.
Yeah, and I think, you know, I would be almost certain that during the last few seasons, no St Johnstone fan has missed out on getting a ticket because Rangers or Celtic took up so many seats. You know, if people wanted tickets, they would have been there. And it is a cutting your nose off to spite your face. But, you know, the chairman is perfectly entitled to bow to fan pressure from his fans. His fans who do go every week are perfectly entitled to get on the chairman's back because that's what fans will do. So, you know, it's up to them. I do predict that there will be a drop in revenue for St Johnstone if they decide to do this. And therefore, you know, they may get to some future point where the chief finance officer starts going, you know, would they want to look at that decision again? But as I say, hopefully, you know, I'd be delighted if they were filling out their stadium every week because I think Scottish football would be better if teams were better supported. You know, these traditional clubs that in the past did have good fan bases, people not going to the games now, and I'd be very, very happy to see that reversed and people start going to the games.
I know, mate, Scottish football great again. I'm with you there, Bill, but I think it's got to take take a lot of work to get there. That's another podcast in itself. How do we improve the game? Get an 18-team league. That's the thing I want to see. But we move on.
You've slightly inspired me because now I'm going to go and get a baseball cap that says "Make Scottish football great again." You know.
I'd argue we need to start with making Rangers great again and then work our way down. But I'll take both. I'll take both.
That's fair.
The last point of order for today. Let's talk about an actual footballer. My favourite saga. I joke. Yanis Hagi was in the media again after his latest appearance for Romania. I think he played the last 20-30 minutes. Again, he's playing for the B team for his club and he's still featuring regularly for Romania. I think that's a story in itself. He was speaking to the media, not because I want to give him credit where credit's due. He's not went to Romania and said, right, okay, go and find me a newspaper. I want to go and speak. He's probably the highest profile player in the Romania squad, so he's always used for media duties. So naturally, he was asked about Rangers, and he was speaking to Pro Sport, and he said, "It's all down to me. I know what I've been through for the last 6 weeks. I did the training with the second team. I did the physical training, and the Romania coach knows how much I push myself to be present here. This is my passion. I'm going to go back to Rangers. I have 1 year left in my contract there. I gave 2 public messages, and everyone knows about them. I love the club. I'm ready to fight for the fans, for what the huge club means in Europe. I'm there, I'm back, I'm fighting for the coach, for the team. They know who I am as a person and as a footballer. Tomorrow I go back to Glasgow and we start all over again. I fight." I think we've argued to death over should he have stayed, should he have went, should Clement have done it, should he now give him a chance. What I say is I like the consistent message from Yanis Hagi that I'm ready to fight for my place.
Yeah, and not just fight for his place, fight for the club. And I think we've got 1 or 2 other players that could maybe learn a thing from Hagi's attitude. You know, it does make me wonder because I'm a big Clement backer, right? I'm firmly behind Clement at this point in time. But if the Hagi saga continues and if we're not getting good results, and if Tom Lawrence or somebody is playing ahead of Hagi and not playing well, and Clement refuses to pick Hagi, and there's no, you know, I know there's the talk about the wages going up or something like that, but I don't know that the manager necessarily has that as his reason. If that is his reason for not playing Hagi because the board has told him we can't afford to pay this guy more, therefore we can't play him, then Clement's in a real difficult position because he's not allowed to play the boy and not allowed to say that publicly, I guess. But, you know, it seems to me for everything that Clement said, he just doesn't fancy Hagi. And whilst you will get that, players, you know, managers don't fancy a player, I think that Hagi has something to offer. And like I say, I think it's going to be damaging for Clement's credibility for this to sort of rumble on. However, if Clement now reneges and does a U-turn and decides to play Hagi, that could also be damaging for his credibility. So I do feel as if he's slightly backed himself into a corner and he's now in a situation where he can't win. And the best thing for the current manager would have been for Hagi to go in the summer, but that's not happened, and he needs to accept that. So now, I think if it's just pride that will be keeping Hagi out the squad or whatever like that, then Clement kind of needs to swallow his pride a bit. Nobody's going to be, well, people will be, I guess. I won't be raging with him having changed his mind and said, that was a mistake to rule out Hagi, because everybody makes mistakes. There will be some perhaps more vocal corners of the support that will criticise him for that, but I certainly wouldn't. But yeah, I do worry for how this rumbles on. Between now and January, it's really important that we're winning games and that we get back a bit of positivity. Having an international break straight after a heavy defeat, let's face it, in the Old Firm game, leaves that air of negativity in place, and nothing is happening on the pitch to change it. So, we'll be back for the international break and, hopefully start winning games and stuff like that. But meanwhile, this is like a bit of a miasma that's just sort of floating around while there's nothing happening on the pitch to distract people. So people are sort of starting to get heated about it and talking a lot about it and all that. It's in the media keeps reminding us. I do worry, between now and January, if things aren't going super well on the park, this will be one of many things that's used to level criticism at the manager.
Yeah, and in a year's time, if we are league champions, none of this will matter. Ultimately, how angry or how upset we are about this will all be based on results. And that's the same if he brings Yanis Hagi in and results don't improve, he'll get criticised for bringing him in because, but if, results will dictate it. But I just think right now, it's a low risk option to give yourself. So take the pride element out of it. Whether you think Yanis Hagi is a long-term answer, I think we can all admit you'd rather have options than not have it, particularly with this squad. And I don't see the issue with having players who long-term won't be at the squad, but try to get the best out of them right now. The manager played Scott right at the beginning of the season. We all knew he wasn't the long-term answer. He's away. He got game time because he was still a Rangers player. We're still paying his wages. Use Yanis Hagi. It won't hurt to have him as an option. And I'm not saying start him on Sunday, but when obviously we're putting a lot of hope in Nadeem Berjami, but he can't do it all himself. So just having Tom Lawrence as the other option, I would argue having Tom Lawrence and Yanis Hagi as an alternative number 10 just gives you a bit more flexibility. It's just me. So that's my take on it. But again, I echo whatever the decision is. If we get good results, then that'll be the right decision. Ultimately, he's got to live or die by where we end up in the league, and we'll look back on the Yanis Hagi thing if we win the league, which is one of those things.
Yeah, definitely. And football, unlike just about any other business, is so hugely results driven that any decision is the right decision if it means that you're getting the results and getting the success. And that's that. You're right, Colin. That's what it'll come down to.
So I think that'll do us for today then. Just shout out for the listeners that the live stream will be on tonight. Young Andy leading the charge with the two Davies and James, I believe. So that'll be on 8:30 live, Facebook, YouTube and Twitter, and everywhere else shortly afterwards. And then we'll have something a little bit different on the Friday morning spot tomorrow morning. And then, of course, we'll be back with a reaction on Sunday night after Rangers hopefully get 3 points at Tannadice. But all that's left to do is, thank everybody for watching, first of all. If you can, just give that a wee like, subscribe. Let us know in the comments what you think of these talking points. And, of course, a massive thank you to Bill for joining me. Always a pleasure, my friend.
Cheers, Colin. Thanks for having me on.
Aye. So, have a cracking Friday Eve, folks, and we'll speak to you again very soon. Take care.